from Nashville, Tennessee. It's time for another episode of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow, where all things related to your safety and security are discussed, detailed, and delivered to you. You may leave with a tip that saves you money or a tactic that saves your life. So here are your hosts, owner and founder of Defense Systems, Brent Fiddler, and owner and operator of Hardening Technology, Tom Herring.
Hey guys, welcome to this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. I'm Brent Fiddler, owner and founder of Defense Systems. I would say with me as always is my co-host Tom Herring, but that is just not true today. Tom had to back out last minute, so we called in the big guns, also known as Adam McIntyre, the Director of Training for Defense Systems. He agreed to come sit in the co-host chair with me today and get this interview done. So we're honored to have with us today Brent Terry. Brent is, I guess, what's your title, Brent? Owner or president or all the above?
My wife and I own the company.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Of Security Solutions
International
LLC. Brent is most, I guess, known to me anyway, in the industry, and how I got exposed to him was perimeter protection is the best way to say it. Physical perimeter protection, i.e. fencing and specifically gates. And when I say gates, people, I don't mean just gates like you think of, although you can handle that kind of stuff as well. Some of the things I'm not even sure I can talk about, so I'll be careful on where I go with that, and then let you kind of tell us more about that. But I know that some of the gates you design, have to install, have to be just super high crash rating because of the type of facility that they are protecting from a potential vehicle-borne IED kind of thing. I know there's some military stuff involved, and again, I won't get into everything about all that. But I just know that if there's a physical perimeter job that needs to be looked at, whether it's something pretty simple residential for like a high net worth client that you and I both worked on a few years ago, versus a data center that's got to be super well protected, or a military installation, Brent is the guy that I know to call for sure. So, but a little bit about you, Brent. Let's start there and kind of your background. How did you end up in this industry to begin with?
Well, that's a long story. I was a school teacher in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
Taught mathematics in high school. And my wife's cousin in Birmingham, Alabama, was in the chain link fence manufacturing business. And he called me and said, "What are you doing this summer?" Because I usually had a summer job at Ford Motor Company in Louisville.
Okay.
And I said, "Well, I don't have anything lined up right now." And I just really been out of school one day. We cleaned out our desk and so forth, and I was home. And I had a 10-month-old baby. This is in 1980.
Okay.
And he said, "Well, I want to offer you a job." And he did. And so we took it and moved to Johnson City, Tennessee.
Okay.
He said, "Tri-Cities, you know where that is?" And I said, "I have no idea." I knew where Gatlinburg was, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we moved to Johnson City and opened up a distribution center for him, warehousing, and we distributed fencing products, Tennessee and Virginia.
Okay.
So I was there for 3 years. No, I was there for 5 years. And then he'd sold his company, and the new people had a vice president and asked me to go to Knoxville and open up another one. So I did, and went to Knoxville and for a few years and got it started, built all these from the ground up. And then one of my previous customers in Johnson City flew in and made me an offer I couldn't refuse to move back to Johnson City and run his business for him, which was fencing.
Okay.
So I did. We moved back to Johnson City in 87. And I ran his business for him. He gave me some ownership, and then time went on. And then her cousin, my wife's cousin, got into more of a security product, and he introduced me to that. And then I went to Chicago to see the first one that he had invented that was installed for Union Pacific Railroad. That was in the early 90s. And then I left in 98, left that company and went on my own. And that's when I started Security Solutions. And we primarily then, at that time, did the fencing that he had invented, which the railroad really likes. And then I was up there working for the railroad on a job, and there was a company up there installing the hydraulic bollards.
Yeah.
And so I got to know.
Well, let's explain real quick, because a lot of our audience isn't going to know what a hydraulic bollard is, much less a bollard. Mm-hmm. Best way I would describe a bollard to everyday people are when you walk up to your Walmart, your Publix. You guys all see these, usually steel and usually filled with concrete posts coming out of the ground that stop vehicles from driving to the front door of your grocery store to protect people, right? And so they have bollards now that are hydraulic, meaning they're in the ground, so we can lower them and raise them and that kind of stuff. So that's just, again, a lot of, not all, but a lot of our audience aren't like us. They listen to this stuff and they're interested in it, but they don't know what that stuff is. So I will have to interject every now and again, probably to speak plain language to them. But so he had developed a hydraulic bollard. He
had invented a fence that was very difficult to cut.
Okay, got it.
And the railroad has trouble with people cutting the chain link fence and stealing. So, miles of this stuff the railroad would buy back then. Well, I met this company from Atlanta that installed the hydraulic bollards.
Okay.
And they were doing it there at this facility that I was working on. And that particular job was 7,000 feet of this fence that's very difficult to climb and cut. So I got to know those people, and they asked me if I would do some installation for them, and they sent me. And my first one for them was in New York.
Okay.
It was near 9/11, and it was bollards, and it was that place. It was an academy for not for the military, but for the merchant marine. So there's a merchant marine academy up there. And I did that one, and then it just kept on growing, and then I started just people calling me direct. And so we do wedge barriers, and you'll see some of those at the Titan Stadium, but you got to know what you're looking for.
Sure. Describe
a wedge barrier.
Yeah,
is a steel plate.
Yeah.
A steel plate of steel, just flat on the asphalt that comes up at a 45-degree angle. It can come up slow or quick, depending on what command it's given.
Yeah.
And that'll stop you from coming in.
Designed to stop vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's lethal. Very lethal.
Okay.
And so are the bollards. The hydraulic bollards are lethal. And then there was a guy down in Franklin who was from up in New York area that went to Vanderbilt, and he invented one that was non-lethal. And it's pretty good. And it's made out of cables that and the system stretches. So if you hit it, you're going down the road 20 or 30 feet and it doesn't kill you. Your airbags will deploy, but it won't kill you. And so a lot of some military bases use that one. The chemical companies in the Mobile, Alabama, all the way around to Houston, they like it because if they have to deploy it, the chances of someone getting killed and suing them are slim to none.
Sure. So what about the hydraulic bollards makes them so lethal?
They just don't move. It'll put the motor in the lap of the driver.
Got it. So if you hit the thing doing whatever miles per hour, yeah.
And there's different ratings.
Sure.
30 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour, 50 mile an hour, and weights, the weight of the truck.
Okay. What's the highest rating of
The highest rating is M50, which is 50 mile an hour.
Okay.
P1 means the vehicle will penetrate 1 meter, no greater.
1 meter past the bollard?
Past the bollard, yeah.
Okay.
Or wedge barrier.
Got it.
I mean, I've helped people design them, and they failed by just a few inches.
Okay.
And the one that was most prominent in my mind is the folks down in Franklin. They asked me to help them design a cable barrier. It was post in the ground, 3 cables that would stop a vehicle. And I told them they needed to add a brace in some particular places, and they said, we want to design it without that brace, and we think it will work, and our engineering says it will. And they failed by, I think, 2 or 3 inches, and we're talking $125,000 a test.
Wow.
And then they went back a few months later and put the brace in, and it passed.
I bet. Yeah, funny how that seems to work. It's like you've done this once or twice. So, and I know you get called in to do a lot of different vehicle protection jobs, right? Whether they're event venues, right, where there's just a lot of potential there. But I know data centers are huge, right? Because I mean, like data centers alone, I mean, just based on what they are susceptible to vehicle-borne attacks. I mean, especially when we're talking explosives. And when we get close enough to the building. Adam, just to give you a little bit about his background, he was in the Army, just retired last summer. For 20 years, 15 of that in special operations. So he was with 5th Special Forces Group out of Campbell and has done 14 combat deployments. So he's done a lot overseas dealing with vehicle-borne IEDs and all sorts of things and protecting bases and embassies and probably places we can't talk about. But I would say a lot of that same technology is deployed, right?
I wouldn't say the technology part of it. So, the wedges and stuff are probably not to the capability that we would have loved to have them, just because they were more transient and, they had to be expeditionary. So we're going to put it here, then pick it up and move it here. So probably not to, what you guys are employing here stateside. I mean, we'd have stuff. But again, it was layered, they'd have to go through Constantine wire and little S turns but their rate of speed, if they got to that point, wasn't going to be 50 miles an hour. Like we're going to be going 10 or something like that. So ours wasn't up to that, capability of what you guys are producing here, but we still had the same things. And again, but it was layers to slow them down before they got to there. Yeah. And then they'd have a machine gun pointing at them as well. So there's always that.
They'll have a chicane, and they'll make you go around that.
Yep.
Jersey barriers or something. And did y'all call it K rails or K barriers or Jersey barriers?
I've heard all. So,
okay, me too. Well, at Fort Campbell, the non-lethal is there, the one that was invented in Franklin.
Well, I'll see the bollards and everything in the ground. Obviously, I've never seen them rise up because I was doing the right thing. But I've been at different bases where I've seen the wall up at one gate because it was closed, and then go through another gate. And I've seen it where it's not a wedge or the bollard; it's just literally a wall that came up, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet, and it looks like, man, if you crash into that, good luck, because it doesn't look like it's. You're not gonna, you're just gonna smush into a little sardine can or something. Like it's not gonna bode well for you when you hit it. So,
well, out there at Fort Campbell, the MPs would keep a car up there by the post, by the gate, and there have been times when someone would literally blow past the MPs or the specialists that are standing there, and the MPs would chase them down in the car, and they could have. All they have to do is step inside the guard booth and push the mushroom button, and they'll come up.
Yeah.
But the guys are worried about, and the ladies and men, they're worried about someone getting killed, and then they get in trouble. And I do understand that. So they just would keep a car there. I did a lot of work there at the heliport.
Okay.
And Apache helicopters. So at the military bases, you're supposed to have a wedge barrier, typically 1,000 feet from your checkpoint.
Yep.
And so that gives the MPs or specialists time to get them up if someone goes past them. Mm-hmm. And then on the left and the right of that, you'll remember this, there are cables with small posts and cables. That's so that the person that's coming in can't go around those barriers.
Yeah,
and I install that too. And none of that's secret. It's right in plain view.
Well, it makes sense to your point that, and you kind of alluded to it, saying specialist, which is a rank in the military that is very low. So you're going to have, on average, maybe 18, 19-year-olds sitting there guarding the gate. So, they're very fearful of a repercussion of pressing a button or whatever it is to launch this thing up. And there were numerous times that I was on base that we went into, it's not locked down or anything, but basically you're confined to base. All the gates are shut down because somebody came through the gate and they don't know where they're at. And nobody did anything about it.
Oops. And
so they went through the gate, and it's like you didn't have a make, model, color of the vehicle, what the person looked like, or to your point, so they'll have a car, no one has access to it or whatever it is. Did nobody follow this person? You don't have kind of like a quicker action force to follow this person. So all the gates around the base would be shut down. It's like, well, it's lunchtime, man. Like, what do we do? We're gonna go get Mexican right now. Now we can't because you guys failed at your job. And the gates would be shut down for 2-3 hours, and you're just sitting there waiting. I remember one time it was someone that was just going to work, and there was miscommunication at the gate. They thought they waved him through, so they didn't scan the ID card. That you're supposed to get your ID card scanned every time to make sure that you say who you are, and then you drive in. And I guess he just thought, he said, "Hey, just go on through." So he just drove normally, went to work, and he was just part of the thing too. The whole base is locked down, and they're looking for this person specifically. And when they finally got to him, and this is hours later, they're like, he's like, "Yeah, he just told me to go through." And they reviewed the footage. He wasn't trying to do anything nefarious. He was like, "I just waved me through." But to your point, yeah, it's even those barriers, there is a human domain to it. Of you still have to know your system and employ it and use it. Because to your point, yeah, they're afraid. They're afraid of getting in trouble.
The one that was invented in Franklin at the time was called the GRAB, and it was an acronym for retractable something. I don't remember now, but it was very incredible. It was an invention that was, the wisdom of this guy just was great. And he was working an accident where a railroad locomotive hit a car up in near JFK. And he thought there's got to be a way to keep this from happening. And he invented this, and he thought the railroads would buy it. They bought zero. But the militaries bought them, and these chemical companies, they really liked them. There was an event at Fort Bragg. I think it was Fort Bragg. And they had several lanes of traffic going out. And there was an overpass, and there were traffic lights for each lane on that overpass. And someone was doing maintenance on the GRAB. And the GRAB was, maybe a 50, 60-footer, I'm not sure. And the electrician pushed the button accidentally. And it came up. And all the traffic stopped in each lane but one. And this lady was in a small SUV, and she was just driving, and her mind was somewhere else. I mean, you got red lights, you got this thing that comes up, and she hit it. And the video shows her, it goes on down, she goes down the road another 20, 30 feet, whatever it is. Her door opens up. She's stunned. She gets out, and people are running over to help her.
Yeah.
She wasn't dead.
But she's fine, yeah.
Anyone else, the motor would have been in the lap.
Yeah. But it still did its job and stopped her vehicle
it did. Someone made a mistake, a human. You mentioned human, and the human made a mistake. And I don't want to be that one, but I saw the video. And then, we put in these bollards, hydraulic bollards, permanent bollards, fixed. We put in the wedges. We put in arms that come up and go down, and gates that are crash rated, that slide. And we're able to secure a piece of property really well. The fencing that goes around it is ornamental. It looks decorative. And one that's near here is the National Guard over on Armory Drive.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, that's not crash rated, but that fence goes all the way around there, made by a company in Oklahoma, Ameristar. And we take the same fence and we can add things to it that makes it crash rated.
Got it.
And you've got the M30, the M40, the M50 on that. And then you have the P1, which is 1 meter, or you have the P2, which is 7 meters.
Okay.
On the Department of Defense, Adam, they like the 1 meter because a lot of their embassies and things are close to the main road.
Yeah.
But if you're building, the data center may be 1,000 feet off of off the entrance.
Right.
So I did one in Minnesota where I did M50 because a perpetrator, a bad person, could get some speed when they hit the gate. So we did M50. But usually it's just M30 is all that's needed because people can't gain a lot of speed by the time they hit the arm, the device. We like to put a crash-rated gate and with a crash-rated drop arm in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
The crash-rated drop arm pivots 90 degrees. The slide gate, it slides, and it's a little bit slower than the arm. But the reason I like to do both is sometimes you have a malfunction, a circuit board goes out with lightning, or someone hits the arm, and you have to take the arm off, you get a new one and put it in, and you may be down for 24 hours. Well, you still have your crash rating because you put in the slide gate. Some people say, oh, don't crash rate the slide gate, I can save money. Well, okay. But example, there's a data center south of Nashville. They've got a guard booth right there at the gate. So I didn't put in crash-rated slide gates. And so we've had that arm hit 3 times, I think. And so by the time I get that arm replaced, sometimes it takes a week, sometimes longer. Just depends. Well, they're not in a panic because they've got a guard 24/7.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the human factor. Let's talk a little bit about venues. And venues it's broad, right? Because a venue can be a stadium, a venue can be an amphitheater, or a venue could be Broadway, right? Depending on what's happening where. So permanent venues, a little easier to talk about as far as protection from vehicles goes. A lot of times you'll see the big concrete planters, right, that are good looking and less menacing and look great around whatever venue it is. Let's talk about Broadway, or whatever that looks like. If you're brought in to consult on whatever kind of street festival, I don't know, whatever it is, what are you talking to them about as far as what we're doing as far as vehicle protection on just open roadways that clearly aren't permanent? We can't come in and do hydraulic bollards out of the middle of Broadway in Nashville for one event. So what are we talking about if we're talking about a less permanent but very effective vehicle-borne protection layer?
The planters are able to be moved with forklift.
Okay.
I use a company called Buhlman, Buhlman. And so you can pick them up with a forklift and move them. They weigh 1,400 pounds without any dirt.
Okay.
And the landscaping people like to figure out what plants they want to put in it. For example, I'm doing some down in Orlando for a customer, and their folks there will determine what to put in it.
Sure.
Well, you can set those down across the road relatively quick, and they look good.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't care about the looks. They just want protection, and they'll take jersey barriers, and they're common because they're used on the interstate all the time to direct traffic.
Sure. Move
traffic over and so forth. So you can do that. Now, you might remember that down in New Orleans, when they had the event down there, was that a few days after Christmas? It was around Christmas time.
New Year's, yeah.
New Year's. They didn't even put trucks, because you've got plenty of trucks.
Mm-hmm.
The maintenance people. You got dump trucks and things they could have blocked that road with, but it doesn't look very good. But you could take some forklifts and set things down pretty quick, which would typically be the K-barrier or jersey barrier, and they make them in plastic where you can fill them up with water. And of course, you better put some antifreeze in there in the winter time. But so those are the options. That, you've got these things that look like bicycle racks. That's just crowd control.
Right.
It's not going to stop anything, but you could position those across Broadway and make it to where you can't go around them. And you could, if you wanted a chicane for ambulances to get in, you could do that. Now, I install a bollard that is retractable, and it's not motorized. A company called FAAC. You can turn it a keyway, and you can raise it up. It's assisted, and then you can lock it down, and then you can do the reverse and push it down. So Broadway would be wise to have those in the sidewalks, and then if you had to close the street off with a jersey barrier, you would still be able to raise those up so you couldn't go around.
Right.
And they're not very expensive. In the scheme of things, they're not. And I'm doing some of those out in Denver soon.
Okay. But when you say not very expensive in the scheme of things, like, I don't want to nail you down, but I don't know. I don't have any clue what this stuff costs.
Well, versus hydraulic.
Yeah, sure.
Or versus electric, they're very economical.
Got it.
Now, they're still a big budget item.
Well, what's a life worth, too? When we talk about security, it's all layers anyway, right? We've talked about this in multiple episodes. Security's all about layers.
I think one by I don't remember if this is one or two, because sometimes you do. I call it an array of two. It depends what you're trying to protect the gap. But for some reason, I had $30,000 on my mind right now for one.
Sure. And again, what's a life worth?
Those folks down in New Orleans would have liked to have had those, and 100%. A few jersey barriers.
Well, because all he did was drive around a police car. He literally drove on the sidewalk around a police car that was sitting there.
And see, if that had been in the sidewalk, they could have raised it up. I put permanent ones in front of the armory.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, Gary said to me, I don't want something really big here that's telling my customers I don't want them to come in. Well, I don't want them taking a car and going through your glass,
Right.
and stealing, crash and grab. So we came up with an agreement where to space them, and I put in 10-inch ones, which were bigger. Some are 8, and I spaced them, and then his folks could walk right in.
Sure.
But he never had a break-in.
I bet he didn't.
He didn't.
Yeah.
You'll see it on the news, a smash and grab. They go in and grab all those guns, and if
Sure.
it had 2 of these in front.
Yep.
I tell you something else I did. I told Gary, I said, Gary, they'll stand right here and look through your window, and it'll be like eye candy to them. They're wanting to get in here. So he put in one of those doors, like at a mini warehouse that rolls up,
Mm-hmm.
and he put that in as motorized.
Yep.
And so he had a glass door and then another glass door, about a 6-8 foot lobby, and he put that right in the middle. And the last person out would roll that down and put the alarm on. So if you walked up to the exterior door and looked through the glass, you're just looking at that metal.
Yeah. You're just saying to roll it. Roll down.
It worked great.
Yeah, I bet.
He never got broke in.
Yeah. So, most interesting gate you ever done? Or vehicle-borne perimeter protection. I keep saying gates like it's so simple,
okay.
but it's not that simple. So, most interesting project you've done that you can talk about?
Well, the most interesting would be I did a big job at Quantico. I was there a long time, a year. And then it wasn't a real fancy job. It was just a lot of fence. The commander would say, here's a spot over here, I need some more fence. Here's a spot over here. Or this fence that was deteriorated, take it down, put me up a new one. But the most intriguing one, I think, is Kings Bay Submarine Base. That was really...
I was hoping that's where you were going.
It was great.
I didn't want to lead you there, but I was hoping that's where you were
great. I mean, it was, for me, I enjoy this. And I'd get there about 0600, and you go in this area, I don't know how, let's say 50 by 50, and there's a wall with glass, and there's ladies, sailors sitting behind it, and to get your ID. And so they got to know me, and they would have it ready for me. As soon as they saw me come in the door, they'd have it ready. And I'd walk. I didn't have to stand in line. They'd hand it to me.
That's cool.
And then you'd go through the checkpoint and go on in, and then there's another checkpoint, and you keep on going, and then there's another checkpoint before we could get to where we were working.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of fun. We were there from October to April or May of that particular year.
Yeah. And I'll just let the audience imagination run wild on what you might be doing at a submarine base, and we'll just
it was really it was fencing, and it was 3 layers of fence.
Yeah.
If you got through one, you had another. If you got through that one, you had another, and there was a lot of motion detectors and heat.
Yeah,
I didn't do that, but I built the fence.
Yeah.
Thousands of feet.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
I bet.
My guys enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I've learned about you is you like what you do, and it's obvious because it comes across not only in the way you deal with people, but in the projects themselves too, and in your what I'll call your customer service. I mean, I got to know you through the guy that normally sits right here through Tom Herring. But if Tom recommends somebody to me, that's all I need to know. Like,
well, I did 2 international jobs that I really enjoyed. Well, 3.
Okay.
I did a prison in Barbados.
Okay.
And then I did a lot of that fencing that my wife's cousin had invented.
Mm-hmm.
I was working in Chicago installing a bunch of it and for the railroad and some other places. And her cousin called me. He said, you got a passport? And I said, no. This is back around 99. He said, well, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines called, and they need somebody to put my fence up, this fence I invented. Okay, so I went down to the Federal Building, downtown Chicago, and I got it, and then drove down. I drove all the way. I guess I drove to Nashville, then flew to Miami, but I flew over on their plane and looked at this property, and I fenced in 4,000 feet. It was one of the roughest jobs I've ever done.
Wow.
Rough, tough. And I had to fly everything in. I went to Tamiami Airport and I rented a plane.
Yep.
Took all the seats out. Loaded it up with, I rented a U-Haul and went over to Home Depot and bought 2 of everything.
Yeah.
And loaded up on that plane, flew over there, and we offloaded it, and I went to work, and I hired local people. And
Good.
I was there a long time.
Yeah.
And then I did a big job in Madagascar.
Okay.
I did 7,000-something feet in Madagascar for a Christian organization.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not bored for sure. And I love that you touch so many spaces in the industry. I mean, from complicated submarine bases to crash rated to just, the right residential project, whatever. You've obviously become an expert in your field. I think you know this, but I'll tell you this anyway. You're very well trusted in the small, this circle that we're in, the security consulting industry is big, but it's not. It's pretty small, and you're very trusted, a very, very trusted name in the industry, and that goes a long way with a lot of people. Obviously, I mean, the fact that you've done some of the projects you've done say all the people need to know. What is the best way, like if people are interested in learning more about what you guys potentially do for them, whether it's fencing, crash-rated gates, bollards, whatever it is, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Website, or just reach out via email, or what's the best way for people to learn more about?
Email.
Okay. What's the email?
It would be BRENTTERY 830 @gmail.com.
Brent Terry 830 @gmail.com. Best way to get it. Mm-hmm. And obviously you guys can reach out to us or Hardening Technology, either one, and we can get you in touch with Brent. But if you've got any kind of vehicle perimeter protection, or not just vehicle, I mean pedestrian, whatever it is, I mean Brent is certainly the best in the industry, has been in the industry a long time and knows his business and knows it well, but as you can tell just by his personality, has no ego. He's just very confident, and that goes a long way with people too. So I do really appreciate you coming in today and talking to us about what you do and helping people learn a little bit more. The audience here is pretty wide. It's interesting when the longer we do this, you got everything from people like us that listen to everyday engineers that work at a manufacturing plant to preschool teachers that listen to this stuff. So the more exposure, obviously, not that you have any shortage of business, but the more exposure we can get you, and the more of an education we can give people. That's why Tom and I started this thing, was to give people an education. We like educating our customers on what's out there and what's good and what's not. So I do appreciate you coming on and sharing all that. And so by all means, guys and gals, if y'all have any more information you want about Brent, obviously reach out to him at BrentTerry830 @gmail.com, or you can reach us directly at the podcast. Also, if you like the show, we'd love for you to go over to Spotify or wherever you listen and leave us a review. Also, if you have show ideas or you want to learn more, or guest ideas, then reach out to us at info@tipstacticstools.com.